What's your worst story from the throw him in the pool, he'll learn how to swim parenting style? My dad and I once witnessed someone who literally did this for a little 3-year-old girl. This little girl was just playing at the edge of the pool, happily minding her own business when her dad ran up behind her, picked her up and tossed her screaming as far as he could into the deep end of the pool while yelling, "Time to swim, honey." At first my dad and I didn't react, cause my dad has done this to me as a game. I learned to swim first, but we started to notice that she was struggling to surface while dad just watched. My dad nervously asked, "Can she swim?" To which the guy just shrugs and says she'll figure it out. I have never seen my dad book it so fast to get at the water as I did that day. He quickly got the kid out of the water and started screaming at the guy about what kind of idiot he was while the girl was just bawling her eyes out. I swear my dad was ready to duck the guy. This was back in the 1990s, so we didn't have a cell phone to call the police, but we never saw them again after. It was the first time in my life I had seen insane parenting, and to this day freaks me out that some people will still do this. I was scared of the deep end, so my dad threw me in. My cousin parked an inflatable mattress in the corner I was in immediately. My parents supposedly yelled at him to move. He didn't. I don't know how long I was under the mattress for, but I was spitting up water, choking when I came back up. I was maybe 6 at the time. Not my story, but my mom's. She developed the phobia after she was thrown into a pool to learn how to swim. At the age of 70, she still doesn't know how to. She's terrified of being on the water, even in a safety vest. And then, some fake clairvoyant told her she would die by drowning, so we spent our summers in the mountains as far away from being on water. Edit: she was thrown in the water as a child, not as a 70-year-old. Edit 2. Fake clairvoyant. Real one. Same difference, haha. Fell and broke my arm. My dad always suspected me of milking any potential illness to get out of school, chores, etc. He comes home from work to find me laying on the couch cradling my arm as my mom tells him what happened, saying, "But is it really broken?" He grabbed my hand and yanked my arm straight. My scream convinced him, and it's off to the emergency room we went. Hurt my arm playing football during morning break at school, was sent home by the school nurse. My dad said it was fine. Bandaged it and sent me to school the next day, only for them to send me home again within an hour. My mom made my dad take me to hospital and my arm was broken. My wrist had split lengthways. It was in casts for 9 months. I was secretly buzzing, to be honest, because, well, that showed him the knob. My younger cousin, 4 at the time, was a climber and always needed help getting down. His dad told his mom to leave him. He'll either learn how to get down himself or stop climbing. Cousin ended up climbing onto the roof, fell off and got impaled on a fence pole. One very expensive trip to the and he now has a cool scar on his thigh. Edit: he did not stop climbing. He just got better ways to get off the roof. When I was about 5 or 6, I was very sick with the flu, fever, vomiting, sweating, congestion. It was awful. There was some mix-up at the pharmacy, and they thought I was my father and gave him adult medication, basically these giant horse pills. Now, normal child medication for things like this are syrups and chewable shit for obvious reasons. My dad comes home and tells me I have to take these meds. I have a hard time getting them down, almost choking a few times. My dad got frustrated and literally started shoving these huge pills down my sore throat with his angrily shaking fingers. I started crying. My nose was stuffed so I could only breathe through my mouth. I remember my dad's wedding ring banging against my teeth, eyes watering, gasping for air while looking at my mom for help. Eventually I coughed it back up, crying and throat on fire. I remember my mom demanding an apology from my dad, who just said, "Well, He's going to have to learn to take pills like that sometime anyway, and stormed off. Damn, I haven't thought about that story in 20+ years. Undiagnosed osteomyelitis in my knee. Crap, doctor told us it was growing pains, so was told to just keep exercising it and walking. The abscess burst out of my left shin bone and caused blood poisoning and basically crippled me. But we'd booked a vacation in Paris, so I had to walk the whole city on various tours, and my mom insisted I was being lazy by losing consciousness every time I sat down. She finally consulted a specialist when I started to sleep for 3 days straight on the couch. 2 days after I graduated high school, I came home to an empty house. All my stuff in a U-Haul because my mom and stepdad moved without me. I have been financially independent ever since, but a heads up would have been nice. My brother and I are 7 years apart. When he was 16 and I was 9, he taught me how to box by putting a hockey helmet on me and beating the ever-loving shit out of me. I'm reasonably certain I was concussed, and I suffered horrible migraines from that day well into my 20s. My stepmom walked us, me, sister, brother 10-12, deep into the woods and left us there to learn survival skills. We thought we were all out on a hike, then she distracted us and ran away. We wandered into camp hours later. We knew how to get back but searched for hours, worried that something had happened to her. She was drinking margaritas and smirking. Edit. Thank you all for the smiles and awards. I freaking love the wilds of r/. My mom forced me to drink milk and she thought I just hate healthy stuff and only prefer junk food. The thing is, I always loved veggies, but I also like junk food. Basically, I love food except for milk. I just couldn't consume milk. It'd make me vomit and I'd have sudden acid reflux not being able to handle it. She thought I was acting to escape, but I just hated it. Turns out I'm lactose intolerant, and my mom still thinks I'm making that up just because she can't let go of her ego. Edit. Yes, my parents are the do it my way or face my wrath. End of story type characters. I am patient with them and hoping they'll grow out of it one day. Also, this is sad to see how many of have faced this. Milk industries are a big scam. My mom's whole parenting style was sink or swim, but funny enough, it's when my mom tossed me in the pool. The summer between 1st and 2nd grade my family moved somewhere with a pool. My mom was adamant that I had learned to swim as a baby, so she bought floaties for my younger sister and refused to buy any for me because I already knew how to swim and was too big for floaties. When I refused to get into any part of the pool I couldn't walk in, my mom called me from outside the pool and promptly grabbed me and tossed me into the 6-foot tent. And surprise, I didn't know how to swim. I remember splashing twice, hearing my mom yell at me to stop panicking. Then I went under and tried swimming to the surface like I'd seen in movies and eventually got my head a bit above water, coughed out a bunch of water and started screaming for help before I went under again. My mom told me to stop making a scene and swim towards the edge. I made it to the edge and couldn't pull myself out of the pool, so my mom yelled at me to swim to the shallow end. When I tried to grab onto the edge to just pull myself to the shallow end, my mom kept taking my fingers off the edge and yelling for me to stop playing and just swim. When I finally got to the shallow part, my mom and family just went, "See, you still remember how to swim, you never forget." I don't know if this counts, but stop crying or it'll give you a reason to cry, something my dad used to say to me. It would send me into a panic. I was upset and didn't know how to stop crying, and then hearing that would make it worse because now I'm crying cause my dad was mad at me, and if I didn't stop crying he was gonna make me cry even more. I was always a picky eater growing up. One time my mom sat me down with a small bowl of almonds and told me I couldn't get up out of my seat until I finished it. I insisted that I hated them and they were making my mouth itch. She thought I was just being difficult. I just started to swallow the almonds like pills because my mouth was so itchy. When I was nearly 2, either my birth mother or her friend, both of who are incredibly mentally unwell, severely scalded my feet and legs, freaked out, moved out of their squat and left me alone in the house on my own for 3 days. When the police found me, I was eating what I could find inside and walking on what the medical records described as balloons. Fast forward, got adopted. Life goes on with some kids, and here I am reading this thread and feeling like a Parent of the Year candidate. I was volunteering at a parent-child zoo day, and saw a few parents like this. The zoo had some free roaming peacocks, and it was awful how many parents just didn't tell their too young to know kids that they can be mean. So the little toddler goes, "Wow, pretty bird," and tries to get a closer look, only to get chased and attacked by this thing while the parents watch. Most of them said something like, "You should have known better," like, how if you never teach them, the child can barely walk, you expect them to remember that some animals have a strong territorial sense, and then your baby gets terrorized by this thing that's bigger than them and looks like an alien for all they know, and you don't even give them a hug. See also, that one mom we had to kick out of the zoo because she was encouraging her kids to antagonize the llama in the hopes it would spit on them. Yikes. People, have some empathy for tiny humans who trust you implicitly with their well-being. They threw me in the pool. I drowned. I needed CPR. They let me use my floaties after that. Edit. Holy shit. All I did was go to work and I came back to home. Thanks for the awards and all the comments. When I was 10, my parents had my siblings, twins, baby girls. Within 2 weeks I was babysitting them 12+ hours a day, at least 5 days a week. Not only that, since I was already babysitting my aunt, dropped of her 1 and 2-year-old too, so I, who had no prior experience babysitting or caring for kids, was now babysitting 4 kids under 3. What a literal shit show that was. My parents told me they were kicking me out at 18 in a move to motivate me. I was in college, no job and virtually no money. My grandfather had left me about 10K in savings bonds that I asked for but they wouldn't give me, so I made a plan. I went around to 5 different Targets and shoplifted about 4 or 5 video games that I took to GameStop to sell. Stupid and wrong, I know. And at the end of the day I had about $600. I was planning on buying some weed to sell to get some income going till I got on my feet, but when I got back to my house a cop was waiting for me. Parents ended up cashing in my 10K to pay for the lawyer. They didn't want to teach me to tie my shoes, because my mom said I had to learn that myself, so should you. At age 4 my father decided that my sister and I should learn to tie our shoes. He made us stand there for hours trying to do it, crying. We just weren't quite old enough. Edited for unfortunate autocorrect. Every time I asked my parents to explain something as a kid I was told either you're smart, you'll figure it out, or you just don't want to do it. Any attempt at maturity was met with either flat-out laughter or being told that I was too young to worry about that. Cue me turning 18, and suddenly I'm expected to be an adult, get a job, pay taxes, and all that jazz. I asked where in the hell do I start, and they got pissy because I apparently hadn't figured anything out. Huh? Wonder why? My father-in-law decided when his first child was born that he and his wife, would not go to the baby when he started crying in the middle of the night, in order to teach him that crying doesn't get you anything in this world. Turns out, newborns need to be fed every 2 hours, so it's a good thing my mother-in-law ignored him and went to their newborn son, otherwise he might have died. When I was around 11 or 12, two kids from the neighborhood got into a street fight. Kid number 1 clearly got the best of kid number 2, and kid number 2 was crying and went home. Should have been end of story. Kid number 2's parents met him at his front door and sent him back out there to continue to fight. I'm not sure if it was about honor or what, but it was painful to watch. My mom told me and my sister, 8 and 6 at the time, to run away if we wanted to leave so badly. We were told to do laundry but didn't exactly know how, so us being young took that opportunity and packed up to leave. 10 minutes later my sister was hit by a drunk driver. I still perfectly remember her Crayola crayon suitcase fucked up in the middle of the road. She was mostly fine from the crash, just scraps and bruises. The real pain came from realizing our mother would prefer to challenge us to run away rather than teach us how to do laundry. She's currently NC and I moved across the ocean. It's better now. Just walk it off. My dad, when I developed a big nasty cyst on my toe when my mom was away on a stressful trip. She was not pleased to come back and have to immediately drive me to the hospital. It got to the point where I took one step on it and almost passed out. He apologized afterward, got a sandwich from a really good sandwich place and I forgave him. Now I laugh about it. Edit, it was Maria's sub shop in Situate, MA, USA. It's really good. Also, I guess this is worth bringing up. My dad is the son of a man who attempted to walk off a gangrenous leg infection that very same year. R.I.P. Grandpa. Oh, I laugh about that too. My older sister taught me how to ride a bicycle by putting me on the seat of a full-size bike at the top of our downward sloping driveway and giving me a good push, sending me flying down the driveway and jettisoning me into the street. I got the hang of it pretty quickly. My parents told me to figure out a way to get lunch money because they didn't want to wake up early in the morning to give me money. They never got an allowance as a child. Why should I get free money? Why would I need money anyways? Don't be stupid. The school will still feed you even if you don't have money. Spoiler alert. The school will not. I had my lunch tray taken away several times because I couldn't come up with $2 every day to pay for it. By age 7, I was very skilled at taking money out of my dad's wallet or my stepmother's purse. My sisters got their lunch money no issues. It was just me. Eventually I got caught stealing, was labeled a thief for the rest of my life. Every time something went missing from then on, my room was torn apart. This actual thing, I was a lifeguard as high schooler. Some parent did this to their 5-year-old. Parent thought the kid was fine, because he wasn't splashing around, he was bobbing up and down with his arms going straight up and straight out. That actually means they're drowning. Had to jump in and grab the kid, who had swallowed significant amounts of water, and call an ambulance to check the kid out. Parent didn't want us to call the ambulance, but we told him it was the ambulance, or the police, because what he did could be considered child endangerment. Dad was losing his shit, screaming at me. A 17-year-old girl, owner of the pool, saw this, and he, former Navy dude, got up in the guy's face. Parent was banned from the pool for life. To this day, I'm convinced the guy was completely hammered. I mean, my parents mostly did the minimum as they were too busy getting drunk and going to court with my siblings, pretty much just thrown into life. Though my mom did sell me weed and the occasional Valium when I'd panic from it all. Parent, I wasn't taught how to do that and I turned out fine. No, you didn't. You did not in fact turn out fine. Thanks for the gold. My dad was notorious for the rub dirt on it method when I got hurt as a kid. When I was 9, I was in a nasty motorcycle accident out in the desert. I broke and misplaced my fibula. The bone was protruding from my leg. My dad didn't want to end his desert trip early, so he told me not to look at it and to keep trying to walk. I was in so much pain. Anytime I would move, I would black out. My brother was so concerned he urged my dad that we should go home. My dad finally gave in but was so drunk he let my 11-year-old brother at the time drive us out of the desert. He was so nervous he hit so many bumps, and each bump I would black out then come to. Once we got home, he thought it would be best to sleep it off before going to the hospital. The next day I was admitted to the hospital and my dad was taken into custody by CPS. When I got my very first period, then my family made a trip to the pool the next day. My mom shrugged it off and told me you don't bleed when you're swimming, and never said another word about it. Spent the entire time taking trips to the bathroom.